So kasi pag natumban yung mga towers yan, mga useless na rin yung mga yan eh. Nangyari yan nung riming eh.
Yeah.
So what is your backup? What is your...
We have our two-way radio system, especially between the LGUs and the provincial government. At least we can manage the resource allocation and of course prioritize which cases should be given more attention, you know, send that rubber boats there, not there, things like that. So may pag nakita namin na nag-bug down itong mga to, imamount lang namin telecoms, iaakit namin sa bundok, tapos we will start to beam and we can start two-way radio system on our own. So there needs to be a redundancy. That is very critical to DRR. The spec should be higher, or there should be a redundancy of system.
This is two-way radio.
Yes.
In other words, UHF, very high frequency,
yes,
VHF?
right. Yeah, VHF.
Now again, tying in the earlier questions of Tina, which is that the government as it stands has an arsenal of various means to communicate with the public. It has radio, TV, it can compel the media and the telecoms to participate when required. Why aren't these resources being maximized as they stand, and then how could they be improved both on a provincial and a national scale? I mean, what will it take?
Dapat unang sumagot siya eh.
Go sir, Karen. Go sir.
Hindi sir, because sir, so he identified that very practical. You have to have redundancy. If your cell phones conk out, kailangan may radio. Now, we also know that the government has multiple ways of reaching people. It has radio, it has television, it even has shortwave. Now, what are you guys doing to tie this all together into you know, the same way the internet works? If one thing collapses, your mail gets around.
No, right now, the NDCC has a backup system, and we have this two-way radio and the single sideband. And in case of emergency, when the commercial system fails, we make use of this the armed forces and the PNP system because they are compatible. As a matter of fact, we are able to reach all the RDCCs, the provincial civil defense offices, through this.
You have a single emergency broadcast line on two-way radio.
Yeah.
On times of disaster, so everybody will just switch to a frequency or digitally lock onto a frequency, and it's not digital. Okay. No. So you have that emergency on two-way radio, emergency broadcast
the
channel.
Armed Forces communication system.
Then that becomes the I was asking the NTC person here, in the franchise of broadcasting stations. Tell us that the government can actually take over in some extreme kinds of scenarios. Is a disaster of this magnitude enough for the NTC to compel all to just broadcast from one main source, which could be the NDCC? Is this scenario likely to be called upon by the government?
Yes, Tina. The franchise and even the law that was passed in 1931 allows the President of the Philippines to take over any radio station for that matter.
Under not under any other kind of scenario. Under this scenario of what happened in Pepeng and Ondoy, could it have compelled the private broadcasting stations to surrender, let's say, 2 hours or every top of the hour for 10 minutes so that all of the guys from NDCC or anyone from the LGUs could come on the air and talk about their particular situation? Pwede ho ba yun?
Yes, that can be done.
Under this particular circumstance, ha?
Under the law.
Under Ondoy and Pepeng, ha? Ang
national emergency.
Hindi ito emergency of any other
sir,
kind.
do you recommend anything to the President? Because, you know, media was being criticized because they were showing cartoons and everyone was drowning and, you know, they were finding it incompatible. One person who was doing an emergency program, who I won't mention, lost the show afterwards because they weren't playing ads, in which means there was no standard policy being applied by the government agency mandated to watch over the airwaves. So what were you guys doing?
The franchises and even the authority There was an MC issued in 1981 on emergency broadcast system. All broadcast companies that with that MC are required to use their facilities for emergency broadcast system. It is in that MC. It was issued in 1981.
Okay, so that's the emergency broadcast system. We're down to our last few minutes. Maybe I can ask the telcos, what have they learned from this experience, and what did you, in your own reflection as telcos, decide to help the government or even the public in trying to make telcos more accessible and maybe cheaper?
Well, Tina, the most important thing for telco to do in a situation like that is to keep its networks running.
Okay.
And you do that first by designing your network in such a way that you have redundancy built into the system, so that if some cell sites go down, you'd have other cell sites covering the area.
Okay.
And we're happy to say that in our case, we managed to make it work. So even at the height of the emergency, you would have signals in the areas that were most affected, Pasig, Marikina, Cainta.
Okay,
but
so
beyond
making it work
that,
at the times you need it most.
beyond
and
the design issue is that you got to be able to deploy your people, no matter what it takes. And I have to really, engineers, not only in Smart, but all of the telco companies, the engineers had to be in the front line of this thing. They were the guys who were swimming through the floods in order to get to cell sites and to keep them running or to shut them down when they had to be shut down already. So that's
so
our
if it
primary
was
work.
if it was running, then what could have the consumer expected, or did you get some nasty feedback of what you should have been doing at that time when they needed you most? I mean, what was it like that they expected
we were
you to do?
too busy keeping the network running. At that point in time, especially during the height of the emergency, the primary concern of all networks, all telcos, is to keep your service
Okay,
running.
Globe, did you get some kind of a criticism on what you should have done and which you did not do? And now you think you want to do to be able to address the concerns at that particular, in times like these? Meron ba kayong naisip na kailangan ginawa nyo noon na gagawin nyo ngayon should this thing happen again?
Well, with many circumstances such as disasters, there's always a learning curve and key takeaways. And one of the key takeaways that we had from this experience was obviously certain facilities needed to be on higher ground. Towers needed to be reinforced to withstand, wind. But identifying these facilities is something that we are continuously doing through a program that we just launched recently called Bangon Pinoy, which is about network restoration, but it's also about rebuilding the lives of people who are adversely affected by Ondoy. So part of it is about offering rebates to people whose internet service was disrupted, offering load to those people who could not or whose monetary facilities have been somewhat affected as well. So there is the rebuilding on that Bangon Pinoy offers, but there's also the restoration. And so in that restoration, where we're aiming to get our services up to 100% continuously without fail.
I just have a very curious question. Did you get an idea of how much your subscribers used for these days that they were actually
a major stockholder of Globe?
No. I mean, were you able to estimate the amount amount of money that a subscriber would have spent under these circumstances? Would you have texted 1 million times more, or what? If your line was on and your battery was on?
Well, for our case, we got...
Did you do a profile of texting or calling at these times? Do you have a study of that? I'm sure you do.
Well, our service is an unlimited landline service, that's wireless, So we got a very positive feedback in areas where we were in Marikina, in Cainta, that we were able to provide service at the midst of the typhoon. But I think one important thing learning from our end is that what happened with Ondoy is because it happened close to home, no. But in our case, this is already happened to us in the past, no. We were largely affected by Reming. We were largely affected by Typhoon Frank, no. We already had the understanding of how consumers, would react, no. At that time, we spent about 5 million to give rebates and giving back defective units, no. And in Bayan, we already have incorporated a money-back guarantee. Even without any disaster, it's already embedded in our system. No, so we have also rebates for any loss of service. No, so it's but natural for us that in these types of situation, all of this will just kick in.
Yeah.
It will just kick in. Like in Reming, we lost about the rebates cost about 5 million pesos, if I'm not mistaken, in Bicol.
Yes, Mon, go ahead very quickly.
But beyond the operations of the telephone companies, I think the point should be raised that